Edip, for this opportunity. I'm aware of some of your work. I know you've written over 30 books about Islamic reform and the Quran, and you've also, I think, translated the Quran
into two languages, English and Turkish translation.
Right.
English translation I have here, Quran and Reformist translation.
Can you talk about that Reformist translation? What makes this one different from the other translations that are out there?
Yeah, this translation is based on reason, thinking, and the language of the Quran itself.
Is it a literal translation?
It is mostly literal translation, of course. It literal means includes metaphors, of course.
Word for word.
But it is a translation of the Quran without relying on hadith and sunnah, the sectarian teachings. It is based on the Quran alone. Quran, God's word is sufficient. وَتَمَّتْ كَلِمَةُ رَبِّكَ صِدْقًا وَعَدْلًا. Quran is mufassal. لَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We made the Quran easy for understanding. Is there anyone who would understand? Many verses of the Quran reminds us that God is able to express His system to us, and the Quran is complete, mubin, and the teacher of the Quran is not Muhammad, is not this alim, that alim, is not me, is God Himself. Therefore, if you open your mind, use your God given reason, al-aql, al-tafakkur, then you will be able to understand the Quran.
Right.
And therefore here you will see major differences between my translations and the Sunni or Shiite translations.
Right. So
I can give you some examples if you want from the beginning.
Yeah, we can actually talk about that. That was great. But also, if you talk about your website, 19.org, so that our viewers have an idea of who you are and who you represent. You're saying that you promote Islamic reform. What is Islamic reform? If you talk about all that.
Yeah, my father was, I have, this is basically 2 English books, 1 Turkish. As I said, I have too many books, but I brought with me to Washington few books. This is my autobiography translated into Turkish, and my father's. I want to show you my father's picture, and that people will have an idea. Can you focus on this? Where is the cameraman? Cameraman, come on, focus on this.
Ahmed, can you show it, please?
Show the picture here. This is from the back of this book. I have my pictures, family pictures, all friends. Here is my father, who was a mullah. Right. Was a well-known mullah in Bitlis, Norshin. And then later he went to Istanbul. He's still very revered by Sunnis. And Tayyip Erdogan knew my father, very respected him. And then at age 20s, I became an author. I was writing articles, and then I ended up in Turkish prisons for 3.5 years because of 2 articles promoting Islamic theocracy, not Islamic reform, but al-Sharia. And I wanted to import Iranian revolution to Turkey. In fact, I was invited to Iran by the Khomeini regime 1 year after revolution in 1980. You
wanted to import Iranian revolution?
Yeah, do the same in Turkey. They invited me as representative of the Turkish youth. I was leader, Turkish Islamic youth.
But you changed.
Of course, and Tayyip Erdogan was my friend.
The current president of Turkey.
Yeah, he was my friend. In fact, he was below me in rank. In fact, one of his right now congressmen wrote a biography about him. He started with my story that I was leading a rally and he was within the group. Anyway, and then Davutoğlu was my friend, and Numan Kurtulmuş. These are now.
Can you meet them right now? Have you been able to?
Well, recently I sent a message to him after the military coup that I could help him, and they wanted me to go there, but there are some I didn't trust fully, therefore I didn't go.
Okay.
But here it is. Later, after the prison, when I got out of the prison, I continued writing, and my books became best-selling books. But later in 1986, I started communicating with Dr. Rashad Khalifa, the discoverer of these 19. 19, I know if you ask today Muslim scholars, Sunni or Shiite, they will be very furious. When they hear this number, they don't get happy with
What
this
is
number.
19?
Yes, exactly. 19 is a number mentioned in the Quran in chapter 74, Al-Muddathir. Ya ayyuha al-Muddathir qum fa'anzir. And then in that one, oh the hidden one, come and warn. In that chapter, there is a discussion about the authenticity of the Quran, whether the Quran is word of God or not. And then the Quran says, ثم نظر ثم عبث وبصر ثم استكبر فقال إن هذا إلا قول البشر.
Right.
I should not say in Arabic much, correct?
Yeah, you should just say in English.
Okay. He said this is word of human being. And then the author of the Quran says, I will punish that person. What kind of punishment? What is saqar? Describes the word saqar. It is not more, not less. And I have to sometimes say few words in Arabic in order to people relate.
Right, of course.
لا تبقي ولا تذر لواحة للبشر says it is a lawha means a screen, an open manifestation for people. للبشر. They mistranslate this verse. Look at the translations. They say it burns the skin. Bashar is not skin. Bashar throughout the Quran it means human being. Lawaha comes from lawha means open. It is manifest, universal for human being. And alayha tis'at over it is 19. 19 is given as an answer for someone who claiming that the Quran is word of Muhammad. And then the following verse talks about the functions of 19. But for 1406 years, no one knew the meaning of this.
That's great. Let's just stick to the main topic today. Okay. So you have this brutal terrorist group known as the Islamic State, ISIS, Daesh, or whatever it is called. It is killing people from every religion, every background, including Kurdish, Arabs, Muslim, Shia, non-Muslim, Christians, indiscriminately. Is the main question that's asked all over the world, is really ISIS Islamic? Do these brutal and barbaric actions have basis in the Quran? Does Quran promote ISIS's actions?
Namo, I think the question is wrong. When you ask wrong question, you end up with wrong answers. It is, first of all, what is Islam? Because when you ask the question, the assumption is Sunni and Shiite religions are Muslims. I argue, and I argued with against top religious clergymen in Turkey, the head of religious affairs, like Professor Süleyman Ateş. He escaped from the live studio twice because he couldn't engage face-to-face with debate with me. And many other, like with Shamsi Ali, he was the imam of the biggest mosque in New York. I discussed with him. Initially he starts nice, but when you expose the contradiction, the trouble with the Sunni and Shiite religions, they get very upset, defensive.
But Sunni and Shia Islam, that's what most people practice.
Yeah, here it
99% of the world population, either Sunni or Shia,
when you ask
of the Muslim population.
When you ask Catholics or these evangelist charlatans, what about you? We follow Jesus. But you Muslims, you little bit know, because when you look at other people's religions, you are more objective. You say, well, Jesus never said Trinity, I am God. And you say they made up Trinity 325 years after Jesus, but they think it is Jesus' teaching in Nicene Conference. Or they say slavery is okay because St. Paul says slavery okay. Or they hush women in congregation because St. Paul told women, you are the guilty one. Because of
back to the Quran.
So now, Catholicism has nothing to do with Jesus or with today's Christians who promote wars, invasions, or promote capitalism. Have nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus was the last man to become capitalist. He said what? A rich person cannot enter paradise as a camel cannot enter the needle's eye. This is what Jesus said. But today is the opposite. The same with the Muslims. The Muslim says, I am Muslim, but it is a name which is far away from Islam. Muslim is peacemaker. Peacemaker. The name, in fact, in Arabic means Islam, Ashiti, or in English, peacemaker. When I say in English, what is my religion? What is my system? I say, my system is a peacemaker. I am a peacemaker. I don't need to say I am Muslim in Arabic.
But you didn't answer my question.
Okay, I'm coming.
Is ISIS Islamic?
Okay.
Why is it the wrong question?
Let me tell you. First, there is no slavery in the Quran. The Quran rejects slavery. absolutely in categorical terms, La ilaha illallah. Arbabun ma'allah, there is no Rabb, there is no Lord besides God. If someone says, I have a slave, he claims to be the Lord, the Rabb of someone, like Pharaoh. Pharaoh said, Ana rabbukum al-a'la. If you have slave...
Because in Islam, all humans are slaves of God.
Absolutely, you cannot. If you claim, if someone, your slave, if you're a Muslim, you say someone is my slave, you call him Abdul Namo. Is your name Namo?
Yes.
And he will be Abdul Edip. Then I will claim I will be Rabbu Abdul Edip. And I will be claiming to be Lord. It is idol worship, it is claiming to be God. Therefore, it is not only a crime, sin, it is the biggest one because it is idol worship. In Islam, there is no aggression against others to get their land or to force them your system, because system is peacemaking. And therefore, Muhammad's wars is always for self-defense. In chapter 60, verse 7-8 says, you cannot aggress others, you cannot fight others if they don't aggress you, if they don't kill you or, how do you say, evict you from your homes.
Edip, there's a serious scholar at Princeton University called Bernard Haeckel.
Yeah, I know.
He's half Lebanese. Yeah. So he's basically, saying, I'll quote him, he was interviewed by Graham Wood in the famous Atlantic article a few months ago with the ISIS Islamic. So he basically says those who believe that ISIS is un-Islamic, I mean, President Obama has also said ISIS is called ISIS not Islamic. He says those Muslims who believe ISIS is un-Islamic are embarrassed and politically correct with cotton candy view of their own religion that neglects what their religion has historically and legally required. And then he goes on to say that people want to absolve Islam. It is this Islam, it's this Islam is a religion of peace, mantra. And if there is such a thing as Islam, it's what Muslims do and how they interpret their texts. So basically this scholar believes that the way Muslims practice that is Islam. And if you believe that ISIS is not Islamic, that's just being politically correct, because they are as Muslim as anybody else, but they also have the same source that we justify for our moderate actions. ISIS uses the same source to justify its brutal actions.
The Quran says, obey God and messenger. Ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul. And the Quran says, do not separate messengers from God, because messenger's whole mission to deliver God's message. He cannot add, he cannot change. Messenger is not partner with God, only delivering God's. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. And according to the Quran, God gave Muhammad only the Quran. Chapter 6, for example, verse 19 says, I am giving this book to deliver to you and to others. Muhammad's time, only Quran was delivered. But centuries after Muhammad, soon after Muhammad, they start fabricating lies in the name of Muhammad. It is called hadith. I heard from Ibn Falan, from Ibn Filan. And then, in the name of Muhammad, they made up a different religion. Hadith in the Quran, whenever it is used, besides the verses of the Quran, is always negative, interestingly. For example, the Quran is ahsan al-hadith, the best hadith, but according the other hadith, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Which hadith, which words besides God and
hadith are the words of Prophet Muhammad, the teachings of Prophet Muhammad.
It is absolutely, you don't need that. Prophet Muhammad never said, the Quran and also me, my words besides God. No, إِنَ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. Therefore, the source of guidance for religious purposes.
So are you saying that we should put aside everything,
all hadith, because
and everything Muhammad did?
Muhammad himself rejected all hadith besides the Quran as necessary guidance for the Quran, because Muhammad believed in the Quran, unlike today's scholars. Muhammad believed that the Quran was mufassal, tamam, mubin. And Muhammad also, like everyone else, was subject learning from the Quran. According to the Quran, please give me a few minutes.
Sure.
Muhammad did not know the right and wrong and he was diverted from right path. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. The Quran guided Muhammad. And during Muhammad's time, they wanted him to come up with something other than the Quran. The Quran in chapter 5 warns him, if you make up any words besides the Quran, will punish you.
Got it. it's really, I think, important that you're making this distinction between Quran and Hadith, the teaching, what people believe are the teachings of Prophet Muhammad. So, but okay, let's.
It is hypocrisy of Sunni scholars, Shia scholars condemning ISIS, saying it is not their religion. No, ISIS is practicing what is in their book, in Holy Hadith. For example, in Hadith book, Sahih Hadith and all these 4 sects of Sunni and other sects of Shia, stoning to death, it is their requirement. ISIS is doing this. If they are not doing that...
But there's actually some historical record that at the time of Prophet Muhammad, a woman was stoned to death.
It is a big lie, one of the many lies. Another historical record in those books, Prophet Muhammad pointed at the moon, split it, half of it fell in Ali's backyard. Another so-called historical record, Prophet Muhammad has sex with 9 wives in one day, one night, had sex with 9 of his wives. Someone supposedly watched him, picked him all the night, and he saw him having sex. Now, these books are full of lies. Bukhari, when this Bukhari came, Namo, when Bukhari came?
After Muhammad, of course.
How many years after Muhammad?
Hundreds of years.
230 years. In fact, his book was not even written that time. We don't have the original. If he gathered, according to him, he gathered 600,000 hadiths in his beginning. He says 600,000 hadiths I gathered, and then he ended up with 7,215 something hadiths. And he rejects more than 98% of it, threw it trash. Everyone was making up hadiths. But listen, if someone is hating dogs, loving cats, Abu Huraira, he says black dogs are evil, kill them. He made up lies about that. If someone is, let's say, misogynist, made up lies. If a woman and dog and a donkey and a woman and a pig passes in front of the prayer, is nullified, basically denigrating women to the level of dogs and pigs. And if someone wanted to sell ajwa khurma, advertise it, said...
Okay, let's talk about Quran now.
Ajwa date, ajwa date.
Okay, now, there are... Let's talk about the Quran, forget about Hadith. But even in the Quran, there are a lot of verses that are, if you translate them as they are, basically, I mean, ISIS is translating them as they are. For example, in Surah Al-Tawbah, there is a verse that says, calls upon the Muslims to fight Christians and Jews, quote, I'm quoting from the Quran, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. This is an ayat from the Quran. When the Quran says this, ISIS takes this thing from the Quran and justifies what it's done to Christians and Jews in Syria and Iraq.
وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ. You did exactly like that. You said there is part of the verse says, do not go close to the prayer. But within the context, you see it is not.
This is actually within the context, and I challenge you. If you
I challenge you.
If you give me the other verse.
Here is challenge.
Okay.
It's chapter 9, correct?
It says jizya.
Okay.
Yes.
Chapter 9.
Surah
which
Tawbah.
Tawbah. Chapter 9. Which verse is it? Is it 20s?
Yeah, I think so. It says until they pay jizya with willing and submission.
Okay. Here it is. This is in the context of Jews and Christians who attacked Muslims, betrayed and attacked. This is in the context of war. They are not any Jews and Christians. This is with L. This is defined a particular Jewish community and Christian community who fought and allied with the pagans of the Mecca. These are against those people, not any Jews, because
ISIS
the Quran
claims to be in war too.
Yeah,
they
okay,
say we're
hold
in
on.
wartime.
Yeah, we are coming to that. Just 1 second. The Quran says you can marry people of the book. For marrying, you need to fall in love with one Christian or a Jew, okay? That means it's okay. You can eat their book, their food, correct? Therefore, there are many verses talks about being together. Muhammad was their leader in Medina, Jewish, Christian, and pagans. Besides mu'mins, they considered him as a leader. However, this verse, first of all, we need to know the context is about wars they attacked, unjustifiably they attacked Muslims, they killed. This. Second, jizya. The word jizya is distorted the meaning of it. Jizya comes from word jaza. Jaza means consequence. Jazauhum al-jannah, jazauhum al-jannah, al-jahannam. Jaza means consequence. These, if they attack you for no reason, they cost you lives and property. After the war, when they lost the war, after the war, they need to pay war reparation, consequence of what they paying money. Who? Those particular Jews and Christians or any group who attacked you. It is not about for their religion. It is about because unjustifiably they attacked you, they cost you.
So you're saying in the Quran there's no
war reparation.
Are you saying that in the Quran there's no statement, no ayat, no surah that justifies ISIS's brutality and barbarism?
Nothing. For example, about chopping head of the usara, those who are captives, is absolutely against the Quran. The Quran says if you have captives, al-usara, either release them as a tabdil, means exchange, or after the war done, release all of them. You cannot even use capital punishment against them because it is worse. It's not personal. It is a group thing. In order to finish this war situation and have peace, you cannot kill any captives, even in the war they killed one of your friends or relatives. Therefore, there are two ways the Quran says, either during wartime tabdil, exchange, or after the war. You cannot kill. But there is a big lie made up most likely by Jewish people of that time, like Beni Qurayza massacre. It's a big lie. We studied this. It says 600 or 800, 900, the people of the Beni Qurayza, they betrayed. Yes, it is. The Quran says they are banished because of they betrayed. And in Medina, Muslims, they escaped from brutality of people like ISIS. Meccan mushriks was exactly like ISIS. They were not tolerant towards the new ideas. They wanted to kill Muhammad. Muhammad escaped to Medina, established a federal secular state. He was the religious leader of Mu'mins, but as Islam means peacemaking, there were Christian Muslims, Christian peacemakers there. There were Jewish Muslims, Jewish peacemakers, and pagan, mushrik Muslims. Muslim doesn't mean every Muslim is not mu'min. The Quran says every Muslim is not mu'min. The Quran, the Iman has not entered your heart, says. But every mu'min is a Muslim, is a peacemaker. Now Muhammad there, and they say they killed these massacred 800, 600, 800 or 900 people of Jews in Beni Qurayza. But we see this same story with the same number differences, with some other details, exactly 70 years after Jesus, Masada massacre. Okay. That Jewish people were massacred. Right. Let me finish 1 minute. Jewish people massacred by Roman emperor. Exactly the same story. In fact, before massacre, the leader talks, and the same story is repeated in the name of Muhammad, attributed lies to Muhammad. Therefore, hadith and seer books are full of lies, create absolutely a portrait of Muhammad, sometimes more merciful than God. In Mi'raj, go negotiate with God is another lie. 50 times prayer reduces to 5 times prayer by getting advice from Moses. And in one way, but he also massacred people like this, which is against the Quran, or he gouges people's eyes, Al-Urayna and Uqayla. There's a hadith that Muhammad gouged people's eyes with hot nails and chopped their head, arms and legs, and left them thirsty in the desert, died. This is a story about Urayna and Uqayla, hadith in Bukhari. Right. Now,
okay, let's forget about hadith, but let's put that aside for now. But the history of Islam, does it matter to you what Prophet Muhammad did, what his followers did afterwards, or what the people who lived with him, how they ruled? If you look at that history, there is like so much evidence, written evidence, that actually jizya, tax, was levied on non-Muslims.
It was after.
Also, there is, for example, just the very history that showed that Muhammad, the Futuhat, tried to conquer other areas, non-Muslim areas, right? He did that.
Big lie.
Muhammad conquered a lot of areas, and that is like a lot of because they were non-Muslims. So, ISIS says they are Salafis. Basically, Salafis returning to what Muhammad did.
The so-called, my dear friend, You could be an atheist. I see an atheist, for example, or a deist or a Christian, but when they criticize Muhammad, they are Sunni Shiite stories. They swallow with all the lies without critical.
How did Islam spread?
Listen.
How did Islam spread?
Let me initially. Islam spread because of this message. Because of the message of freedom. La ilaha illallah is ultimate freedom. There is no God except God. I will not submit myself to any human being. Be prophet, be the president of the United States, be president of Iraq. No. I am a human being, they are equal to me. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Oh Muhammad, tell them I am a human being like you. They became friends. Muhammad and other Sahaba means friends. Not murid, not muqallid, not stupid people who worshipped him. He made them, he said, you are given dignity by God. لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. But today's Muslims, so-called Muslims, they became basically slaves of other human beings. They're politicians, they're religious leaders. Throughout history, they have many idols.
Just to be clear, are you saying that...
One is freedom.
Are you saying that Prophet Muhammad didn't use force to spread Islam?
Let me tell you, just give me some time. I know that you are hyper.
I'm just asking my questions as a journalist.
Lovely. First of all, freedom. That's freedom is important. Muslims are not free right now. They are subjugated by religious clergymen. They follow their mullahs, their hujas, whatever, their ulama, zulama, I call them. Now, one, free your mind. Question everything the Quran says. Muhammad promoted this. وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٌ إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. Chapter 17, verse 36. Do not follow anything blindly. Your mind, your heart is responsible from what you are thinking. These are important because these establish the scientific revolution in Arabic world. They became #1 in the world. Because what? Because of the verses of the Quran. فَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. The God says, in Allah, God is...
Just say it in English.
Chapter 10, verse 100 says, God afflicts troubles to those people who do not reason. Chapter 7, verse 100. You mean, and therefore, if you are not, first, freedom. Second, thinking, reasoning. Question your parents' religion. All messengers of God, they were heretics. They rejected orthodoxy. They questioned the coming, oh, so many people believe this. Who cares? The Quran says, do not follow the crowd. وَلَا تَتَّبِعْ I'd say, أَكْثَرَ مِنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do not follow majority of people. They are misguided in terms of truth about God. Therefore, he was a revolutionary and says there is no slavery. He says men and women are equal. Chapter 49, verse 13. Tribes, your different race, there is no merit or being man and woman. There is no difference except إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The best among you are those righteous. Because of this revolution...
I have a lot of other topics to discuss. Would you just be brief a little bit?
Finish it.
I'm sorry about that.
Because of the revolution idea, he was rejected because he challenged the whole religious, economic, political structure of Mecca. And therefore they kicked him out. With his friends, he went to Medina, established a wonderful, peaceful state. And the message went around so fast, Mecca fell not by swords because people accepted Islam. Byzantine fell because people in towns and cities in Byzance, they accepted Islam. Initially it was. In a very short time, it went to Philippines and Malaysia and India. It was not by swords. It is a big lie later they fabricated because of the sultans in order to justify.
But sword was used.
In order to self-defense, to defend people who are aggressed by the tyrant, by Byzantine emperors, or by Sassanid emperors who are imperialists. They wanted to
I want just to ask you some questions because there's almost an overwhelming majority of Muslims who believe what I'm going to say. They believe that homosexuality is punishable in the Quran. If you're a homosexual, you should be punished. The extremists believe that you should be punished with death. If you commit adultery, a married man or even a non-married man or woman, if they engage in intercourse outside marriage, that's also punishable. If you're married, it's punishable with stoning or with death. This is a majority of people's understanding in the Muslim world. Tell me, what is the punishment for somebody who's homosexual in Islam? And according to your understanding of the Quran, what is the punishment for somebody like who commits adultery? What is the punishment for somebody who leaves Islam? Somebody who believes that I'm no longer a Muslim, what ISIS called an apostate.
Okay. Let's start with that. There is no la ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in system. There is no one. You cannot even touch a person physically because that person left your Islam. It is not Islam anymore. It's not peacemaking. It is a war making. It is absolutely against Islam, against the Quran. The Quran. Let me give you just one verse. Chapter 40, Chapter 4, verse 140. Chapter Nisa, verse 140 says, if you are in a group of people, you are arguing, discussing about God and religion, and they are making mockery of your religion, deen, what do you do? The Quran, what do you do? According to them, you fight and you beat them, bite them, kill them. But the Quran says, leave their presence. And then when they come to their senses, reasonable argument, they start conducting reasonable argument, then continue. But not even cut relation all the way. But if they are making mockery, they are not in zone of reasoning and argumentation. This is it. And as far as for certain conducts, very important. This is the trouble of 57 countries. Look at the so-called Muslim world. All around the world, many continents, many different ethnicity and nations, cultures. All of you troubled, all of you afflicted with ignorance, with oppression, with misogyny, with so many troubles, with backwardness. Look at the inventions, patent. I look at the patents every week, how many people around the world got patents. Yeah. I don't see 57 countries. You brag about 200 billion people we are. One Israel have more inventions, patent than all of you combined. Now here is, because the affliction is, we betrayed.
One by one, please, if you just answer those two, because we have to move to another subject. I know there's a lot to discuss, but just like briefly, is there a punishment for homosexuals in the Quran?
No.
There's no punishment?
No, because if only punishment for this, that's, I was coming to that. Muslims lost the distinction between morality and legality. If it is illegal, you can punish. People can come up with punish. If it is immoral, you cannot punish. You cannot legislate morality. Very important. What is the distinction between moral and legal? If you are hurting someone, another person, then it is illegal. Then the society protect another person from you, then have punishment. But if you are drinking, you cannot be punished because you are drinking. But in hadith, you are punished. You can even beat. Or you don't pray. You cannot be punished. It is a matter of morality, your own decision. No one should be punishing you because you drink. But if you drink and drive, then if you stop, you can be punished because you put other people's life at danger. The same with homosexuality. You are homosexual for yourself, but when you impose on others by force, like in the story of Lut, they were imposing force on other people, they were sexually harassing, that time you can be punished by the society. Therefore,
by
Muslims,
God as well. The Quran talks about a story
by
that
God, but
he punished God,
listen,
people.
The only unforgivable sin the Quran says, shirk, so-called Muslim Sunnis and Shiites, until their not nose, until their eyebrows, they are in shirk. In everywhere shirk. Shirk means what? You said Quran is
shirk, if you believe there's another God in addition to Allah, will you be punished by God?
No, you can by God. Well, it is not my job. God has a purpose in this life. Says, if I made you free, you can be only a servant of perfection. God is al-haq, the truth. You can be only servant of truth, such truth. God is only deserve submission, perfect submission. God is al-adl, means justice. You seek justice, perfection. But if you betrayed this and you became the servant of another human being like you and hurt other people, you lost this test and you end up not in the presence of God. Hell, in fact, I have an article. Go chapter, this one, 19.org. There is a book, download that book, please. Manifesto for Islamic Reform. Download that one, compare. Over there, I compare the verses of the Quran with hadith and sunnah and mazahibs. But we say Sunnah. Sunnah, Sunnah, Sunnah. Quran and Sunnah. And the Quran says, وَلَن تَجْدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا تَحْوِيلًا. Always Sunnatullah. It is God's law. But the fabricators of hadith, they created another Sunnah, Sunnah to Muhammad. Not a single verse in the Quran talk about Sunnah to Muhammad. They even destroyed the meaning of Sunnah. Sunnah means Sunnatullah, God's law. They say no, Sunnah to Muhammad is a big lie. Hadith, throughout the Quran, when it is used for the Quran, Ahsan al-Hadith,
but what,
other than Quran is negative.
I'm just puzzled. Why is there such a, in your opinion, why is there such a huge, why is there such a huge misunderstanding of Islam? If you believe that 99% of Muslims follow the wrong Islam, that's just like really surprising to me. You believe all the Sunnis and all the Shias?
During Galileo, people...
Why such a misunderstanding?
99.9% people believe that the earth was flat. It doesn't change the fact. I care less about majority. People do not care about truth. My friend, majority of people lies. Majority of people, especially when about God, when something about God, they don't care about truth about God. Listen carefully. If I tell you an extraordinary story, let's say I am late for this. Do you have, how many minutes we have?
I'm not exactly sure, but
okay,
probably 10 minutes.
Okay,
yeah, 10
let's
minutes.
say I am late, on my way late here. You say, Edip, why you are late? Let's say my student tells me, I teach philosophy. My student is late. Why you are late? He says, well, the traffic was jammed. There was traffic. Okay, I believe that. But if he says, well, there was a UFO landed in the middle of things, and they start abducting people, doing tests, and they did even tests on me, then it's an extraordinary story. I don't really believe that easily. I need more evidence, even more than just a Photoshop picture. Correct? An extraordinary claim requires extraordinary evidence. But somehow, when claims about God, which all are extraordinary, religious claims, when you go to a church or a mosque or a synagogue, somehow you become a zombie. Whatever story is told to you by imam, by priest, by rabbi, you just believe those stories about God. Because what? Because you don't care about truth. In fact, a claim about God, religious claims are extraordinary claims, require evidence, not ordinary evidence, extraordinary evidence. Now, these people, these rabbis, these mullahs, these priests, imams, they don't even provide ordinary evidence. All they say, I heard from this, from this, Moses part the sea. Well, you are telling me an extraordinary story with no evidence. There are so many lies we can make up about, I heard from this, hearsay. Hearsay is not even ordinary evidence in the court of law. Do you know? Therefore, when comes you say, why these many people believe this? Because they don't care about the truth. This is what the Quran says, majority of people hate truth. In the end of chapter 12, says, majority of people do not believe, even if you want. The end of chapter 12, Surah Yusuf. Majority of the people do not believe. Those who believe, majority of them do not believe without idol worship, without associating partners, like messengers, prophets, or mullahs, imams to God. Very interesting.
So when it comes to a terrorist group such as ISIS, you believe, like how can we get rid of this ideology?
Here it is, how we can get.
Is your suggesting radical reform in Islam?
Here is two things. One is Iman. What I am saying, mu'mins are few. Not many people who really believe in God based on philosophical investigation. Like this 19 scares many people because they don't care about truth. And this is a powerful argument. I discussed this with top atheists and religious guys, but it is a powerful evidence about God's existence, and the Quran is word of God. And the Quran is very distorted by Sunni scholars. I argue here, I expose, let's say in the beginning, I give 15 verses and examples how they distort here.
Right. So you are saying...
Can you focus on this one?
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to focus on, but just show them the book. It's okay. So one thing, are you suggesting that people should use Quran as a beginning? People should forget about every hadith,
Absolutely
every teachings of Prophet
hadith,
Muhammad.
Sirah, these
Let's
are
start
all
with the
distortions.
Quran. That's number one.
These are all distortions. Reason about that, we need to have Islamic reform. But if you don't believe, be a Muslim. Listen, being a Muslim doesn't mean you be a mu'min, a believer, acknowledging the truth. Mu'min means really to trust in God.
Right.
Very few people can trust in God, knows that there is God. Not only I believe. Why I believe? Majority of people, Christians believe, Hindus believe. They believe what? They believe in crowds. They believe the bandwagon. The crowdest bandwagon, the loudest, the closest bandwagon. It's not the truth they seek. Wherever they are born, they got the religion of their parents. Inherit, not investigation. This is not the truth. This way we cannot find the truth. Therefore, few people are believers, but Muslim, all of them must be Muslim, the whole world, because inna dina inda Allah al-Islam. The only system acceptable by God is the peacemaking. In order to establish peace, we must have freedom. Freedom of religion, entering religion, getting out of the religion, whatever belief system, no one should be punished by that. Second, these are emphasized in the Quran throughout the messenger. All the messengers, they promoted freedom. La ilaha illallah. Therefore, no pharaoh, no this, you cannot be submitting them. Second, reason. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ تَفَكَّرُونَ فَكَّر aql means reasoning. Modus ponens, modus tollens, disjunctive syllogism, these are, we are born with it, logic. This is ruh from God. It's God's system that we understand God's message through reasoning. And third, share God's blessing with other people. Help the poor. You should not have hungry people. You should not have Ibn Sabil people on the streets. You have to help people. And then justice. Stand for justice. If there is aggression against you, stand for it. Defend yourself, but don't aggress against other people. Fifth, establish peace. Therefore, the only system established by God is Islam, means peacemaking. It is not Sunni, it's not Shiite, and it's not a set of beliefs. These are universal truths that people, reasonable people, atheists, deists, agnostics, whoever, we can come together, we can agree, we can elect.
So in an ideal Islamic country,
Islamic means peacemaking, like
okay.
Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark.
In an ideal society where Muslims,
Muslim countries,
where Muslims are the predominant majority, or where your version of the Quran, your understanding of the Quran is implemented, is there room for atheists to live? Is there room for Christians?
Of course, atheists will be
peacefully
equal
and
citizens. There will be Muslims. Muslims means peacemakers. Muslim means they don't believe in God. If they don't believe in Quran, no problem. The people in Medina, who accepted Muhammad, they didn't accept Muhammad's prophethood. They accept him as a just guy who will be injustice. He will be treating them equally. He will not be unjust. And therefore, Jews, Christians, mushriks, like believers, like mu'mins in Medina, they accepted Muhammad. But for mu'mins, Muhammad also had another mission. But for others, Muhammad was a leader. Therefore, could be atheists? Absolutely. There will be equal citizens. But I want to cite you one verse in the Quran. I don't have the verse number, but you can find it. A group of Muslims, peacemakers, go fight with some mu'mins, go fight with some Christians or pagans. They fight. And then they ask help from Muhammad. The Quran says, don't help them. They are mu'mins. They are believers of the Quran. Why don't help them? Because they violated the contract. There were those people who they fought against, though they don't believe in the Quran, they don't believe Muhammad prophet, but they had peace contract with Muhammad. Because they violated the contract, they fought against these people of the book or mushriks, they are wrong. You don't. Therefore, the rule of law is most important, because peacemaking must be the system in the world. Therefore, Muslims are against aggression, invasions of countries. You cannot defend, like an American citizen. I am against American invasions on countries. I condemn it, these military occupations and stuff. And I believe that ISIS is the consequence, mostly the consequence of American invasions and stuff, plus resurrection of these Sunni teachings. And there are several other factors. I have an article in 19.org says 9 factors that created beast, the ISIS beast. 9 factors. I list those factors. You can find that article.
Edip Yüksel, thank you very much.
That's
you
it?
definitely have very tolerant views, much more tolerant than the views that are practiced by a lot other Muslims, especially like the ones who call themselves Muslims, the Islamic State. And well, good luck with what you're trying to do.
I want to say, I feel bad for these kids. These people, young people who are fighting for ISIS or other groups, they are young. A few years ago, they were sweet kids. How in the world, we old people, we turn them to this? We are responsible. Therefore, I cannot really condemn those young people. I say these are young people. They put their lives in danger. Instead of just condemnation, we say what kind of religion and political mindset environment our countries, our states are doing.
It's really difficult to understand what ISIS's brutality.
Therefore,
and I'm sure a lot of Muslims, we have come to the end of the program, and thank you very much. I'm sure a lot of Muslims would agree with you that ISIS doesn't represent true Islam. بینەرانی بەڕێز و خۆشەویست تا حەڵقەیەکی دیکە و هەفپەیوینێکی دیکە هەر شاد و بەختەوەر بمێنن.